morning everybody, good morning, it's JPR and welcome back to another video. Every region has its fair share of dope areas, and those that you wish just weren't in the game at all. Today I'll be taking a closer look at these areas to determine my personal favorites and least favorites from every region. Just know that I may not discuss some of the more obvious ones, like beginning routes or areas that are meant to be a straight narrow path to nowhere because, well, some of those areas are intentionally designed that way. It's mostly going to boil down to specific design choices that I either really like or really hate, so strap yourself in, it's gonna be a roller coaster. For the Kanto region's best area, I think I gotta give it to the original Safari Zone. Although this Safari Zone doesn't feature any crazy puzzles or gimmicks like future Safari Zones, I think it best encompasses what most people associate the Safari Zone with, catching rare and exotic Pokemon. There are so many different Pokemon species available here, with many of them being exclusive to this area, like Tauros, Pinsir, Scyther, Kangaskhan, and even the exceptionally rare Dratini. Compare this to the rest of Kanto's areas where you usually aren't able to find more than a handful of underwhelming Pokemon. Whenever I play through a Kanto region game, my team is never complete without a catch from the Safari Zone, and nothing beats the feeling of going from area to area for the first time wondering what rare Pokemon is going to pop up next. The geography of the 4 different areas is pretty interesting too, making it a bit harder to get from place to place than you might expect, which is pretty important considering you have to navigate this area in 500 steps or less in order to obtain the HM Surf and Strength, which are required for the rest of the game. Even as a seasoned veteran, perfectly remembering the optimal route to get everything you need in one trip is a difficult task. In my honest opinion, despite being the very first, this is still the best Safari Zone. No other ones offer as many rare and unique Pokemon or provides the neat rewards that this one does. But shifting over to the worst area in Kanto, and it took a lot of willpower to not choose one of those side yards they call a route. Instead, I'm going with Route 13. Now, I actually don't mind that this route is part of one of the longest and most challenging stretches in the game, which is actually 4 different routes put together. That to me is actually kinda cool. I just think the layout of this particular section is pretty whack. This quote-unquote maze looks like an intern had a stroke on the keyboard. The wild Pokemon are all confined to this odd block of grass on the right side, and the only ones you can find here are Pidgeotto, Gloom, Venonat, and Weepinbell, who have all been available on prior routes. This is notably the first place in the game where you can find Ditto, though, but if you just wait until the very next route in 30 steps, then its encounter rate jumps from 5% to 15%, so there's not much of a reason to hang around here if you're looking for that. On top of that, when it comes to trainers, this place is swarming with bird keepers and lasses, so expect to fight a ton of Pidgey and Rattata, like you've been doing for most of the game. Everything from the route design to the Pokemon variety just feels very uninspired here, and it certainly doesn't help that you can completely skip this area by just riding down the cycling road. My favorite area from the Johto region is Union Cave. It's one of those areas that has a lot more than meets the eye. Kinda like my YouTube channel, hey. The first time you traverse the cave, it's a rather simple straight shot through the first floor to get to Azalea Town, but after obtaining Surf, the basement area opens up, allowing you to access 2 extra rooms at the Ruins of Alph. The trainers deeper inside the cave actually use some pretty neat Pokemon too, like the Evolutions and the Kanto starters. And finally, a wild Lapras can be found in the furthest reaches of the cave on Fridays, one of the few static overworld encounters for a non-legendary Pokemon. Admittedly, it's not incredibly unique, as similar areas in Johto can also be explored further via underground rivers like the Slowpoke Well or Mount Mortar, but I just think that Union Cave does the most with it, between the Ruins of Alph and the Wild Lapras. Speaking of which, I think Mount Mortar is pretty underwhelming considering how much more vast it is, but leaves you with an infinitely less cool reward at the end, but I wouldn't go as far to say that it's the worst area in Johto. Because the exterior is way worse! Yep, we're talking about Johto Route 42. It's one of the most straightforward late-game areas out there, and is just the lamest way possible to pass Mount Mortar. The only cool thing this route has to offer is a small cutscene with Eugene and Suicune in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Other than that, it's a straight surf across featuring 3 very underleveled trainers, even by Johto standards, a 90% Goldeen surf encounter rate, and in the grass you get Spearow, Mankey, Zubat, and Flaffy. And for players of Silver, Crystal, and Soul Silver, you don't even get the Mankey. I guess Flaffy is kinda cool, but if you were planning on using one, why wait until now and not just catch a Mareep much earlier in the game on Route 32? I don't know, this route just really encapsulates the entire feeling of late game Johto. It's almost like the route itself is saying, don't get your hopes up. Alright, now Hoenn is a really hard one for me to pick for. Longtime fans will know that I believe this region has the best designed areas. Whether it's the branching paths of the Safari Zone, the steep climb up Mount Pyre, the changing scenery of the Shoal Cave, the falling ashes on Route 113, but I gotta stick with my childhood favorite on this one. Route 119 on the way up to Four Tree City. This route has everything. Tall grass, short grass, weather conditions, rare Pokemon, acrobike exploration, mach bike shortcuts, 6 secret bases, that weird mimic circle thingy, and me and the boys spending 2 weeks at the lake trying to hook an ugly fish. This just feels like the first route in Pokemon where they really threw everything at the wall, and it's a grandiose sight to behold. Just look at the absolute size of this unit. I feel like so many other routes that attempt to replicate this just come across as long and tedious. This is one of the few long routes that keeps me engaged from start to finish. And above all else, it's just beautiful, whether you're playing the original Hoenn games or the remakes on the 3DS. This area is always a joy to explore. Now, as hard as it was picking the best area for Hoenn, it was almost as tough picking the worst, since even Hoenn's worst areas truthfully aren't that bad. Sure, there's throwaway areas like Scorched Slab in Gen 3, but that place gets a pretty giant makeover in Oras. I think if I were to average the two incarnations of Hoenn together, I'd have to go with Granite Cave. In Gen 3, it's just another one of those, oh, you gotta explore in the dark for 20 minutes type of caves. There are no trainers, no big reward at the end, it's just there for the first encounter with Steven Stone, really. In Oras, they just make it even worse by cutting out the majority of the cave and leading you straight back to Steven's room, so it's not even really an explorable area. You can come back once you have the Mach Bike from Mauville City, but your grand reward at the end is a Steelixite, which has no purpose until the post-game, unless you love Steelix so much that you decide to transfer it in early. If it were just a Megastone for any other Hoenn Pokemon like Mawile or Sableye, who actually live in the cave by the way, it would have been kinda neat. I guess the saving grace of this area is that the Pokemon are pretty unique. This is the first area where you can encounter Aron, Makuhita, Sableye, Mawile, and even Abra. So I still wouldn't call this area a total bust, just uncharacteristically underwhelming. In Sinnoh, you know the drill. Could it really be anything other than Mount Coronet? Now, sure, is it HM overkill? Yes, but so is most of Sinnoh. You're not really getting around that anywhere. The upper part of the mountain heading towards Spear Pillar is particularly great. There's so many sprawling paths and opportunities to get lost, but even when you reach a dead end, it never feels completely unsatisfying. In Platinum, you'll find the adamant and lustrous orbs quietly tucked away in a secret room behind a waterfall, and even in Diamond and Pearl, the area is littered with all kinds of important valuables. The Pokemon selection is also pretty decent towards the peak of the mountain. In particular, I love the addition of Absol to the encounter table in Platinum, foreshadowing the coming disaster. It just feels like an incredibly fitting location for it to show up. The music is also top-notch, perfectly driving home the intense atmosphere as you climb towards your final confrontation with Team Galactic. The journey itself is quite literally reaching its peak as you climb higher. And with Legends Arceus coming up, I have a feeling that we're only going to see more great things from Mount Coronet. Before we move on to the worst though, quick shout out to Route 206. Masking that hidden entrance to Wayward Cave with the cycling road was such a sick idea, and your reward for discovering it is a higher chance to find Gible, which becomes arguably the most powerful Pokemon in all of Sinnoh. Now that is how you pull off a secret area. The worst area in Sinnoh? Mount Coronet. No, really, Mount Coronet is just that big to where it can be the best and worst area in Sinnoh at the same time. If you're mad about it, it's my video, my rules, I'll see you in the parking lot. While Upper Mount Coronet is epic and beautiful and intense, the lower caves of Mount Coronet really suck doo-doo. You cross through Mount Coronet so many times during your adventure through Sinnoh, and almost every time it's nothing but an HM checkpoint. And then you realize, oh crap, I don't have my B-Barrel with me, also I have to put on a Repel now or I'm just gonna get swarmed by Zubat and Geodude and other generic cave Pokemon. It's just lame. At least at Seabreak Path, I get the satisfaction of going really fast through a field of pretty pixelated flowers. These caves, on the other hand, exist for the sole purpose of slowing you down. It's one of the reasons I'd rather just fly everywhere in Sinnoh. But it's pretty much just the first couple floors I dislike. Even then, I do like the addition of the aquifer in the basement where you can hunt for Feebas. The fog effect I would even say is kinda neat since you're inside a mountain and it's not like there's any trainer battles to worry about here. Speaking of fog, nope, no, this route is actually pretty cool if you defog it. I couldn't say it's the worst. Plus, that wouldn't be fair to the lower half of the route that isn't covered in fog. Good God, this area is gigantic. Now, I can say that fog is the worst weather condition, and I don't think anyone would disagree with me. Missing moves in the gen with the slowest battle system is fun. Anyway, this is getting a little long, and I got work in the morning, so I'll see you guys back here next week with part 2, covering the Unova, Kalos, Alola, and Galar regions. Leave your predictions down below, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it when it drops, and be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time.